Morning. Say hi, Callie. Hi. Okay. So I'm hoping you guys can see what I'm going to try to show you. I think so. So, I was thinking about this subject last night and thought I would just do a live video on it. So what are you guys doing this morning? Don't even know what time it is. Hey. Hey, Beth. Okay, so I have had people mention this to me before, so I thought I'd just kind of talk to you guys about building a garden on a budget. And my whole life has been on a budget, so it's something that I've got a lot of experience at. And yeah, so I think I've done a pretty good job of it, and I'm just going to share with you my tips for building a garden on a budget. So what I started with was a lot of grasses, and I don't know if you can see the big grasses. I think it's miscanthus. I've got different varieties, and the very first grass that I bought was from a mail order catalog, and it was called maiden grass, and it literally came in a pot that was like this big, like a 2-inch pot, and it was just a sprig of grass sticking out. And you talk about disappointed, because the picture in that catalog was, you know, the grass was like this big and just massive, and I get this little tiny sprig of grass. But that sprig of grass quickly grew, and it became a huge, massive clump of grass. So I would start dividing it and moving it different places, and then I got zebra grass, and then Davey brought some home from a job. But that's kind of like the backbone of my gardens. Like, I like to put the grass in the background and kind of build around it, because it's dramatic, it gets tall, and you like to have different heights of plants in your garden. So that's kind of what I started with, was grasses. And in the fall, in the late summer and fall, they get beautiful seed heads on them, and they're just stunning when the autumn sun is coming through and hitting them. So that's what I started with, was grasses. And then like, I have cannas over here. I don't know if you can see them over here under the window, but these came from whenever I lived up here. I grew up here in the farmhouse, and Mom had planted them under the kitchen window. And I got married, I moved to Chaffee, we made another move, and then we ended up building here, and the lady that lived there at the time gave me a start of them, and I planted them under my kitchen window. So they've always been here. They like this spot, they don't die, and that's how I built up my canna supply. So the best way to build up your stock, one of the best ways to get new stock, is to get it from someone else. So gardeners like to share, and I love to share my plants. If I know you're going to take care of them, if you're going to take them home and like sit them to the side, not let them die, then I don't like to give them away. But I like to give plants away, and so that's how a good way to get started. So cannas is one thing. Like, they get tall, they're kind of dramatic, they look kind of tropical, they love a hot spot. So that was one of the things. The other thing that my garden is full of, and so here's the thing, let me back up and say this before I start giving you plant names. So what you need to do is you need to find plants that you can propagate easily, that grow well in your area. Find a gardener that lives near you and see what is easy for them to grow. So I can tell you, I can give you a list of things that are easy to grow here and that are easy to propagate. So the fastest way to build your stock is to take cuttings or divisions. And so with my mom's, that's what I did. I started taking cuttings from people that I knew, Mom and my mother-in-law, that weren't cutting theirs. Hi, Karen. And I just started taking cuttings and rooting them. And I started building up my mum stock. So last year, last count, I had over 160 mums. It's a little bit excessive, but they're so easy to do. You just have to be prepared. You have to have a place prepared for them, and you have to take care of them. You have to tend them until they are rooted and on their own. As you can see here, these have had a haircut, a serious haircut, and they're looking kind of poor right now, but they'll come out of it. So that's, this is what I've done. Okay, so when I started the garden, this was all yard. Actually, all of it was yard. Actually, all of it was a field because we built here. But this was the side yard of the house, and we didn't have anything over here. We just mowed it. And then my mother-in-law had an in-ground pool with a fence around it, and they decided to take it out, and so they gave us the fence. And so I decided, this is what I do during the winters, dream up stuff to do in the spring, to fence this in with that fence, and it was just enough fence to fence in this part of the yard, and there's a drive on the other side of that fence. So fenced it in, and the great thing about fencing, and another thing is with the grasses, you can use the grasses to make like a living fence, and it gives you need a stopping point to plant at. So if you just go out in your yard, and it's kind of overwhelming to try to plant and think up and design a garden, for me, not for a garden designer, but for me, to just, there not be anything to plant to stop at. And so that's what the fence did. It provided a stopping point, starting and stopping point for me to plant in. So if you don't have a fence, that's what I use the grasses for. And I have over there on that side, I have a grass fence. And I just planted this grass, small clumps close together, and it's grown up and made like a fence. And I also have it around my pool as a privacy fence because it gets really tall. So that's a cheap way to build a fence. You need a stopping point. So when I started this garden, I didn't have any of this garden. None of this was here. So what's happened is I filled up this garden with my plants, with my cheap plants. This is what I call it. Cheap plants, easy plants, free plants. Once I got that full, I needed to expand. So you start expanding out. So then that's when last year I dug all this up and added this garden. So what's happened is I have my backbone, like my cheap and free plants, which would be like mums, like the Stella d'Oro lily, the Larry oak grass. You've got yarrow and bees balm, and let's see what else I have. Well, lamb's ear. So all of those things grow fast. They get big. You can divide them almost every year. And so when I start a garden, I put those cheap plants, free plants in it just to, kind of lay it out. Then as they grow, and I look at seed catalogs and plant catalogs during the winter, I discover plants that I want, new plants that I want to try. So I start the seeds, I start the plants, whatever, get the bulbs, get the roots, whatever it is. I take out the cheap plants that's been holding the spot, and I replace them with something new. And then the ones that I've taken out, they go to a new garden that I'm going to start working on to hold that spot, to fill it in. So so what I've done is like sedum, like I've had sedum and stuff in here just to fill space, and I don't need it in there anymore. So I have a holding bed out here around the electric pole, and it's just for me to take excess plants to, and so I don't have to mow it. But whenever I get something new that I've been wanting, then I have to make space for it because everything's full. And so I take out one of my cheap or free plants, move it out to the next bed that I'm going to be working on, the next area, the next garden, and replace it with the new thing. So with that being said, sedum is another awesome plant. Literally, okay, so I don't know if you can see it right here. I'll break it off. So this is what it looks like. It's kind of like a succulent type plant. It's got real fleshy, kind of thick leaves, but you can literally take this off like this. And someone gave me this. Thanks, Penny. You can take it off, peel the leaves off, just poke that in the ground, and it'll grow. This is perfect for beginners. You can take the leaf off and stick it in the ground, and it will grow a plant. These things will grow anywhere. They're so easy to grow. Whoops. They're so easy to grow, and you can fill your garden up fast. And I love these because they make a nice rounded ball shape, so it just looks good. So the other thing that I started with when we built this house was I bought like 4 pots of liriope, or it's also called monkey grass, and I divided it up. And I should have dug one up for you because it was like little bitty, like the blades of grass. Let me find it. So this is, excuse me, it's morning and I haven't been talking much. So this is what it looks like. It makes a round clump of grass that's, you know, about this tall. Gets little purple flowers on it in the fall or late summer. But when you dig it up, it's got like little sections. So when I bought those pots, I took all them little sections apart and I planted like one little section all the way down the front flower bed. While those grew and spread, they put out little runners. They come up over here. You can dig that up and plant it somewhere else. So I don't know if you can see. We'll see. Whoops. Trying to figure out what I'm trying to show you. Okay, so these right here, that is what that is. What I like to use that for is to edge my flower beds. So I'm a huge fan of grasses. I love all grasses. So I use the big ones for the background, or for, you know, statement piece, or, you know, in the center or whatever. Then I use this liriope, or this monkey grass, to edge the garden, because it will grow together into like a mat. So if you can't afford edging, this is the perfect thing to use, because it'll make just a solid little wall. Okay. Then I have some in-between grasses, but the mums are the best. Those are the easiest things. So we got sedum, we got mums, we got different kinds of grasses. We got the cannas, the knockout roses, any kind of roses you can start. The ones that I started last winter are already blooming. What else was I going to show you? Okay, so these, I don't know if you can see them, these little yellow lilies right here. So that right there, that started, I got one little clump from my grandma. I got one little clump from my grandma. I planted it. It started, you know, after a couple years it was bigger. I pulled it up and started dividing it. So every year I would just take a little bit off of it. I also like to line my paths with those because it looks really similar to the liriope, but it gets these little yellow flowers that just bloom all summer. Okay, so that is my suggestions, is to start, you know, make your plans, start small. Like, you can't just start. Had I thought, you know, I would have expanded and done all this and had to thought that all out at once, I couldn't have done it. Like, it would have been too overwhelming. But I started small. I started with, you know, just the end of the house here. And I just put in like cheap, free, easy plants, let them get big, start dividing, start moving, edging out, and taking your plants out. So it's super fun, and you can start adding. I love perennials, and I'm always on the lookout for something that I don't have, a perennial, unique perennial, and something that I can propagate and make more of. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or would like to see, you know, a list in writing, let me know. I'm in zone 6B, so we're kind of I don't know, maybe halfway towards the lower part of the zones, so we can grow a few things that the higher northern zones can't, but it's still, the principle is the same. So you can find plants that are easy to multiply and divide and use as your backbone. So, all right, you guys have any questions before I get off here and finish drinking this before it gets cold? So last night I had one start of peony, a peony bush, or peony, however you say it. Got it for my mother-in-law several years ago, and I had planted it under a tree, and it didn't like it there. It never would bloom, so I dug it up and moved it to the front of the house, and it likes it there. So I don't know if it was last year or year before last, I dug it back up, divided it into 2 or 3 sections. Well, last night I went out and dug some more off of it and moved it around here in some places that I don't really have anything else, because they don't really, they're only flowering one time a year, and it's not for very long. But they do have nice foliage, but they tend to flop, and I don't like floppy plants. So, but I love it, the color in the spring. So I dug some up, and I've planted it in different places to give me some spring color. Another thing to think about is your fall color. So with your mums, I have them going all down here. They're all down the fence in the garden. But I also, you want your eye to kind of follow. I do. I want my eye, when I see the orange, which is what will be blooming in the fall, I kind of want it to go and flow around and not just stop and stay in one place. So that's what I was also doing. And another tip for you is to, like this kind of weather, when it's been raining and kind of overcast, is the best time to dig up stuff and transplant it, because the sun's not going to dry it out, and it's not going to be so hard on it when it, it's kind of goes through a stage where it looks really terrible. So now's a good time to transplant things. I mean, it's actually getting kind of late probably, but we didn't really have a spring, so I'm still digging up and dividing, and they're still living. So, all right, you love a list. Man, I missed the whole thing. Yeah. You can go back and rewatch it, Christina. But yeah, and my problem, one of the things that I've always been bad about in the past is when I go to a garden center, what I should be doing is buying 3 of the same plant, and I want to buy 3 different plants because I want to have more variety. But it would be better and have more impact if I buy 3 of the same kind. But it's okay. So also, don't discount vegetables for like foliage. I have a rhubarb planted right here. You can't see it because I just transplanted it this spring, and it literally, the leaves just died and they looked like they were dead. So I planted a rosemary right beside it. And just this week I looked down and there's the rhubarb coming up. So I had to move the rosemary. But the rhubarb is just gorgeous leaves. I love foliage. I love big leaves like elephant ears and brunnera, gunnera, and rodgersia, and all those big, huge leaves. I think they just add so much interest, and they're so pretty. Like, it doesn't all have to be just flowers. So, yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. Put out stuff that multiplies. Dig it up, move it. Take cuttings. I've showed you guys how to take cuttings, and you can take cuttings on just about anything. As far as like perennials, just take the soft new growth off the top. If it's a woody stem, it's not probably going to root. But yeah, I think that's it. I'm looking around to see if there's anything else. Oh, those do you guys have those big orange lilies that like grow wild on the side of the road? Well, I got some of those. Not gonna say where, but I got some of those, and that's one of the things that I also started with, because they take up a lot of space and they flower all summer. So it was a free plant, take up space, look pretty, and I've slowly started digging them out and I move them out. So like I've moved them out and put them in places that I've not gotten to yet. So y'all better say a prayer that I don't take over the whole yard, because Davey's afraid of that. So, okay, Christina, I started this garden in 2014. So it's literally only 4 years old. It's not a very old garden. And I think it looks great. I mean, there's things I want to change. But it's amazing how fast it can grow in such a short amount of time. So I'm still working on it and still adding stuff, and this garden over here, and I'll take you over here real quick. This is its second year. So this is its second year. So I think I'm pretty sure it's its second year. I looked through my Instagram. Trying to figure out how old these were, and that's the oldest pictures that I can find. It's 2 years, and I'm pretty sure it's 2 years old. This second year or third year. So this over here, I started all of this from seed not last winter, but the winter before last. This is Sweet William, and we have white. Let me see here. Sorry. Okay, we have white yarrow over here. This is a thug. It's going to take over your garden. So I'm constantly pulling it up. I have dianthus that I started from seed. And amongst all of this, I have dahlias that I have taken. I bought bulbs, or had bulbs from last year, took cuttings, made more plants. I have lemon balm over here, you can't see. It's a great plant with like a foliage plant. It smells amazing, and it makes like a big old ball, which I love that shape. This is asparagus, and coneflower, like purple coneflower, black-eyed Susan. They're awesome plants. Like they don't like to be tended very much, so they like poor dry soil. They do great. So it's great for beginner gardeners. So yeah. The other thing is lamb's ear. I know I talked about that. It's the fuzzy silver. I bought one of those and let it get a little bit bigger. It seeds all over the place. I just keep digging the seedlings up and moving them, transplanting them everywhere. And it's free plants. It's like once you get it started and you get a few plants, you just have endless free plants. So anyway, that's it. I'm gonna let you guys go. Let's see if there's any more questions. All right, you guys have a great weekend. Bye.